Today on Everyday Injustice, we have the third installment from Represent Justice, and we have three more amazing ambassadors and filmmakers. We have Emmanuel Noble Williams, we have John Medina Jr., and we have Angelique Todd. So welcome all three of you. And let's start with Noble and just kind of tell us a little bit about your background, whatever you want to get into, and then the about the film that you've made.
Nah, thank you definitely for having us, and super shout to represent justice as well and TPP. I was born and raised in Boston. To had to really survive a cycle of trauma, and we just navigate how to survive and what it is to be a Black person in America, and as well as like not having resources, like really led me into Department of Youth Services as well as the adult prison system. And I realized that throughout that process, I was silenced through not knowing how to tell my own narrative, and everyone already had like a perception of me with most people. And so it really leads into my film, where you talk about like hurt people, and now I'm on a healing journey. This film is like a way to help people begin their own healing journey. So the name of my film is The Making of the Mask. I produced The Making of the Mask through my participation in Representing Justice, a bachelor program. The film explores how childhood trauma forces many of us to put on a mask. The way that we hide in pain that often leads into the justice system or the legal system as well. And if you don't lead you to the system, you're still in the system locked up mentally as well.
All right, John, you want to go?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Dave. It's good to see you, Noble and Angelique. Much like Noble, a big shout out to Represent Justice and Kinda Media for supporting me on this project. David, it's a pleasure to be here with you as well. The film that I produced is The Cure Complex. I created this film much because from my personal lived experiences in treatment, it tends to mirror the prison industrial complex, which leads to the name the Cure Complex. I'm somebody who has been impacted by systems. I experienced the school to prison pipeline as a young adult, and this film was created as a way to kind of highlight some of the existing gaps and ultimately get it in front of stakeholders so we can attempt to improve outcomes and heal people.
And Angelique.
Hey, so I'm Angelique Todd, and I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. I'm a survivor. I'm justice impacted. I'm a lived experience expert, as well as a small business owner. I'm the founder and director of my own nonprofit, which is We Win Women Empowering Women in Need. I was blessed to be able to create this film of mine, which is Advocacy is Life or Death, thanks to Represent Justice. And you see, we're all going to shout out Represent Justice because that organization really means a lot. I've been out of prison since 2004, but it was until I ran into Represent Justice and was chosen to be a part of their ambassadorship that I got the power to come behind the scene, from behind the scene, and advocate on a different level, and also highlight what it means as a person with lived experience to advocate within a system and the social services that's wrapped around it, what it means to have to navigate through that, also fight against that, which is highlighted in my film Advocacy is Life or Death. Again, the entire need for people to understand what the justice system is lacking, and how we as individuals, people who have been incarcerated, are the best to stand up and speak in the forefront, not behind, of what's needed and what it's going to take to make a difference.
So I'm going to start with kind of a question for each of you, and then I kind of want to get into a more general discussion about issues such as trauma and survival and how the system of punishment helps or hinders your journey. But let me start with this, Noble. You've said you lived for a long time with a mask on. What was that mask and how were you able to take it off?
That mask was for me to navigate. So before the age of 10 or probably 10, I watched someone get murdered right in front of me. And I also seen what happened when you talk to the police. So I watched a person get circled and stabbed up and thrown in the dumpster. And so this is all before I hit the age of 11 years old. And so never having conversation or understanding what to do and not to say, like to the point, like, and my brain's not even developed fully. So I used to see the police when I was young, I used to just run. Because in my mind, it's like, oh, people see me talking to them, but they're going to stab me up and throw me in a dumpster. And even going back to seeing someone get murdered in front of me, going to the police station, we can't help them find who did it because I'm a child, I don't even know what's really even going on. I'll never receive, mental health, no therapy. So it really showing me at a very young age is like you're on your own. So even as you're getting beat up, you're getting jumped, I have to learn how to fight. So it's really that mask, that armor that you have to put on to navigate through society, especially as a young person, because I felt at that time no one cared. I also didn't know how to advocate for myself because like just growing up in society was like a child is a child and you stay in the kid's place and the child don't have a voice. So if I don't have a voice, that's the creation of that mask, right? And the healing and the journey, it was a journey that I got comfortable with having this mask on. By the time I was able to learn how to protect myself, keep myself safe. So now the different traumas that I've been through when I was younger is carrying me through my life into adulthood, right? So I just know what I know. And what helped me take that mask off really is just a journey of my own healing process to restore the justice and realizing that I am a survivor. I was a victim, right? And majority of victims or survivors end up in the system because of the fact that we're now fighting for ourselves. And so that master is basically like I had to become someone that I never wanted to be in order to survive um in the world.
Thank you. Very well put. John, growing up, you describe emotional instability, trauma, and system involvement. At which point did you realize that something needs to change?
For me, David, I would say, I mean, that aha moment, I would say, even though it took me many years to kind of fully grasp it, was when I had my first son, right? Having and bringing a new life into this world changed me as a person. I was, at that time heavily involved in gang activity and other illicit behaviors. And here I am attempting to try to do harm to others, yet I have this person that I care so deeply about. And it was just kind of some, dissonance within me. That's what changed me. But I would say, even still, there was a lot of growth that needed to happen, much like Noble described as the mask that we wear in those streets, right? You can't, it's an armor of sorts and it's necessary to survive. And, at some point, for myself, that, mask needed to be shed. And unfortunately, I wasn't always, I think, prepared for that shedding per se. And so, as a way for me to escape the internal discomfort I was feeling, I turned to drinking and, substances as a way to numb that pain. And so, that was pretty much, how I coped.
And then, Angelique, your work with We Win combines mentoring, trauma support, and prevention. Can you kind of describe how your own experience led you to build this organization?
Oh, definitely. And thank you so much for asking that question. Me founding a nonprofit organization such as mine, I understood the need because it wasn't available for me. I didn't have anyone in place to hold my hand, not only hold my hand, I didn't have any resources available to believe in me, uplift me, and not turn their back because of my trauma. Um, a lot of people fail to realize, and including myself and people of color, Black trauma is real. Um, Going through the system and that gentrification, adultification of young Black girls or girls of color is really prominent. People disregard whatever the trauma was, they disregard whatever the survival tactics were, and they look at the anger, they look at the disrespect. But no one asks the right questions. No one asks what happened to you. No one asks, how can I help you? And instead, what they do is they place the blame. So within my organization, I made a stance that I knew that if I had someone to ask the right questions, I wouldn't have gotten into the positions or the predicaments that I got into, dealing with the system as well. And I vowed that if I had the opportunity, that's what I would do. I would be an open door. I would be a safe space. Not only just a safe space, I would not turn my back on any individual that wanted help, no matter how difficult it may be in society's eyesight. That's why it's important for people with lived experience, people who've been through the system, to help others to navigate through a system that was not built for us.
Noble, you'd mentioned that, a common saying, that hurt people hurt people. I think that is kind of critical to understanding the whole system, that people have trauma, they have unresolved trauma, and there's this notion in society that, there are two classes of people, they're victims and offenders. And the reality is that the victims become offenders at times because they haven't dealt with that trauma. Can you kind of describe that a little more?
Yeah, definitely. I've been in survival mode my whole life. I was suffering in silence. And I always say like so many crimes were committed against me before I committed my first crime. And in order to really get support and resources from the system, you have to be something have to happen to you first to get that support. And throughout my incarceration, I was stripped of all my attributes. I was no longer a father. I was no longer a son. I was no longer a friend, a community member. I was a W100354. And coming back into the community is like, no, Noble, you're not a victim, you're not a survivor, you're a criminal. And just thinking about and it's heartbroken, right? It really made me like tell people like, yeah, I've been through a lot and I had no one to support me. It's gonna be times that we got to take things in our own hands. But I feel like just the being a leader and showing people how to come out of that trauma, how to work through themselves through restorative justice is another pathway of doing the work on yourself and also coming back to help others go through that same journey. But it don't feel good at all. Like since I've been home for 5 years and I'm always being told that I'm not a survivor, I'm not a victim because I committed a crime that I'm responsible for, right? But no one really thinks about what is the root cause of why this beautiful young Black boy had to survive all these things that will lead him to that path, right? So what us is really about understanding the root cause. That's the only way you can find a true solution.
And John and Angelique, I'm hoping you guys can jump in as well with your insights.
Yeah, can you repeat the question, David, one more time? I apologize.
Yeah, well, it's basically, the saying goes, hurt people hurt people. We really ignore the role of trauma, as Noble said, a root cause of crime. Why did this beautiful young man, commit something? And so, from your perspective, how did that play out in your life?
Yeah, I mean, there's without question, I apologize for the background noise. I was definitely a hurt person and I was definitely out there attempting to hurt people. And it took me, some really deep internal work to recognize the power that I truly had, right? And, I think that kind of ties into the film The Cure Complex and some of the things I experienced going through treatment, and how, I mentioned it mirrored the criminal justice system when it's about control, compliance, and punishment more so than empowering people to heal and overcome trauma and the different experiences that we've had. And, I think, Angelique alluded to this, where, we don't always ask people, what it is that you need. We tell people what they need. We tell them who they are. And, I think a lot of times, whether it's being done intentionally or unintentionally, there's people even working in, systems that aren't healed, and they're inflicting hurt and pain onto others, especially in, the treatment industry as we know it. So, I think there's a lot to be said about that. But when I was able to put myself first and foremost and work on healing myself, that's when, things I think really changed for me. And I haven't looked back since.
Angelique?
I'll say this, and it's definitely a fact. Hurt people do hurt people. Now, how that hurt comes out, it comes out in a lot of different ways. Within myself, facts. I'm a fact seeker. I try to base everything off facts, not feelings. Facts are 90% of women and girls who are within the system that have been arrested attribute that arrest tied into that human and child sex trafficking, domestic violence, sexual assault. So what that means is somewhere within that abuse that they've received, they've had to commit some sort of crime per society in order to survive. If you had more people who were trained efficiently enough to recognize those traits, recognize those signs, even look at the stats, 90%, that is huge. So out of that 90%, someone should automatically, again, ask the correct questions. Within my personal life, me being hurt, the way that I exuded my pain or my coping mechanism was anger and violence. I was being hurt. So my thought was, let me be the big bad wolf. Let me put up this stronghold where I now became the aggressor. I became the gangster. I became the one that didn't want to be fucked with because I had been tormented as a little girl. And also one of the big stigmas within the Black communities are she's fast because of the overdevelopment of women of color. So you get looked at in a certain eyesight that makes you be in that fight mode. And that's really the take that I had on it within my own journey and my own self-experience.
So from your perspective, Angelique, does the system, the prison system, actually work to help you deal with these issues, or did you kind of, and I see Noble laughing, and or did you kind of figure this out despite the system?
David, it does not work. And yes, I was able to navigate and figure it out within myself, which makes me, I have to pat myself on the back because not many people are fortunate enough to be able to navigate it on our own. So I give applause to Noble. I give applause to John. I give applause to those of us that have been able to, like I said, navigate through something that was not meant for us to survive it, be strong and bold enough and have opportunities to be in a position so that we can speak against it without being afraid. Again, luckily for Represent Justice, it gave me those wings. I've been out of prison over 20 years, and it wasn't until the past couple of years that I've spoken 100% genuinely and truthful about my past because I own businesses. I own a nonprofit. I didn't need society telling me, look at that felon, she can't do anything, or looking at me through this microscope to try to tear me apart instead of looking at the good that I've done. So no, the system didn't give me that support whatsoever. It didn't give me any form of rehabilitation. If anything, it made me even more fearful because now I have this stigma that I have to fight extra hard against, on top of the fact that I'm a Black female that is not looked at as a female throughout society. I'm the angry Black woman. And in most cases, not even given that much of a credit. I'm the angry Black bitch. So imagine being angry at a society or a system that made me look this way and have been portrayed this way and trying to fight in the same instance. So no, David, the system did not assist me in any type of way to be great today.
So, John, from your perspective, what does prison get wrong about helping people?
I think there's not enough emphasis, and I think Angelique and Noble kind of touched on it too, is, there's not enough emphasis on the preparation to go back to the community, right? I think that's something that, when I was getting ready to parole from prison, we did have a pre-release class, but we were on lockdown, right? On top of navigating, all the different prison politics that exist, right? And so, a lot of times the systems are meant to control and get people to comply, not necessarily invest in the rehabilitation. And, I think for me, that was one of the biggest eye openers and just things that I recognized in that process. There's not much in the sense of empowering people to take control of their lives. There's not much. I mean, I'm in San Francisco, and obviously there's a lot of resources out here for folks now that are coming home from prison that are, transitioning. That wasn't available. I was fortunate to have some people in my life that cared about me, family and things like that. But there's not, it's still not an easy process because you go from, one world, which is essentially a community within a community, right, back to the real world. And, it's a process to transition, and there's no real emphasis on, what people need. It's just, this is what you need to do or else. And that fear control aspect is what holds people back from being the best version of self.
And Noble, I'm a big believer in restorative justice. Can you talk about how that has the capacity or the ability to help break the cycles of harm?
Definitely. I've been doing RJ for almost like 15 years now, right? And I actually started this work while I was incarcerated. Nothing to do with the prison. I trust the men that I was incarcerated with. We also had a lot of support from outside volunteers. And the first time I sat in a space and the person asked me, what happened to you, what you've been through, and creating a safe space where we have a safe container. And the first time I was able to like really contribute to what do I need to feel safe in this space, and that space being respected and understanding that I wasn't the only person going through what I was dealing with, and also learn about what do accountability look like, because accountability is not punishment. Accountability is how you repair harm, and also having that empathy to understand the person I'm harmed, what have they been through, what was their journey, right? Me being incarcerated, I didn't get to see the police come, the yellow tape, the fear that the community had. One day, a mother spoke about the loss of her child and how her son was murdered. And it dawned on me, that was my wild moment, like, oh snap. Even though I didn't murder her child, but I played a major part in her child being murdered because due to my actions of making that area unsafe, right? And so it really helped me see the other side, and also survivors to understand, right, what we've been through, what was our root cause. And they're like, wow, we understand each other now, right? So it takes away that verse and allows that us, because it's going to take us to build this community, and this is just to piggyback off of like, I served 10 years. I was re-traumatized every single day I was incarcerated. They used strip searching me as a form of punishment, so they get to see my body anytime they wanted to. And I was dehumanized every single day. And then after I served my time, they said, okay, Noble, you are now released. Go home and be a superhuman. And that's just the reality. So with the support, and then the men I was inside with that I grew and that helped me be a better person, because they was never coming home. So they just want me to be home and stay home. when you come home, like due to certain laws, you're not around to be around other convicted felons. And I grew apart from my family because I haven't been around them in 10 years. So now I'm back to being alone in a community I don't even recognize, and I have to navigate and figure it out.
Thank you. John, can you talk about trauma-informed reentry and what it looks like from your perspective?
Absolutely. When we think of trauma-informed reentry, trauma-informed care, it starts and ends, in my opinion, with safety, right? Noble kind of touched on this. I think that's what many of us, that have been traumatized by the systems lacked the feeling of being safe. And, I'm a firm believer in how people feel about themselves and about their environment's going to make a big impact on how they present and move through the world. And so that's something for myself. And, if you watch The Cure Complex in the film, a lot of the participants and interviewees talked about feelings. Robert specifically mentioned, that he felt good about what it is he was doing. It wasn't the medications he was taking at one point. It wasn't, the programming. It was how he felt about self. And so I always think, and bring it back to any relationship, collaboration, partnership, always starts and ends with feeling safe to be your authentic self.
Angelique, with regard to the youth that you work with, what has been most effective in breaking down kind of the barriers of fear and building trust?
Thank you for asking that. You're asking all of the right questions, David. What's effective is being real, providing that safe space and not turning your back. You're dealing with kids that most of their life, somebody has disappointed them and let them go. Again, because of simple situations, what's called survival. And again, everyone else, society looks at it as disrespect. I've turned shooters into scholars. I've turned prostitutes into people that's in the Air Force right now. And it's only because, first of all, I'm a person with lived experience. I can't tell anybody not to go and sell dope if I've never done it or understood what it feels like to be without or understand even what it means to be angry because you're caught in this system that you don't know how to navigate. You're unaware of how to make it outside of the system or even to deal with it while you're there. Being 100% honest with what you've gone through has allowed the youth that I deal with to build that trust factor with me. I'm transparent and I care. I really give a damn and it works. And so that's why I get angry and I'm so passionate about everything that I do because that's simple. Simply just give a damn. Act like you care about the system that you said. Everything within the juvenile system is for the benefit of that child, what's in that child's best interest. But no, we have this school to prison pipeline. We have the juvenile detention center to prison pipeline. I'm in Alabama, and I don't know if you've seen the Alabama solution, but it's not a solution. We need a resolution to really fix that. People don't understand how backwards the South still is. And again, it's a pipeline. Alabama's motto is you build them, they'll come. We have this enormous problem with the prison system, but our wonderful governor idea is to build this $1 billion bigger prison, not address the issues that are happening. So again, it takes believing in somebody because again, us as individuals that are here, like I said, Noble and John, we understand what it means to have an opportunity to be looked at as humans. Represent Justice has given me that. I didn't have that before. Again, not to say that I wasn't successful, but I was successful with this shield around me. Lord forbid, I can't let anybody know that I have this record. I don't want anybody to know about my past because I don't want anybody to judge me. More organizations, again, like Represent Justice, Noble's nonprofit, John's nonprofit, my nonprofit. We need people with lived experience to be in the front, not in the center, definitely not behind, because who better than us to bring awareness to what we've been through? And look at us. We've all been through the fire. But guess what? We came out refined, not burned. That's an example that youth look at too, because when I talk to them, Miss A, you ain't been to prison. You don't look like you've been to prison. Yeah, baby, let me tell you. And let me give you the real about it too. Because we live in a society where these kids are social media driven. And it's a trend now. They want to go to prison. They want the little ankle monitor because of the rappers that are out there. So people like us can tell them what it really means to be in those inhumane situations, to know what it means to have to wear other people's underwear, to know what it means as a woman to be looked at by male guards fully naked. That's things that are not expressed. And when you tell these kids that, now they have a little fear within them now. Like, wait a minute, I may not need to go down that path. And then you give them an option. Because I can tell you don't do this all day long, but if I'm not giving you something to guide you to go in the next direction, whatever I'm saying is useless. So giving them an opportunity, giving them true resources, that's the key.
I find all your stories so incredibly powerful. And I'm kind of curious, and this is kind of my last question. How has sharing these stories with others changed you, but also changed the way that others see you? And I know, Angelique, you kind of alluded to this, so maybe you can start.
For the way people view me now that they know my story, now it's crazy because I do social media, but not like heavily. But I've never posted until my film. I've never posted a photo of me being in prison. So now when people look at me and they know a bit of my past and they know how far I've come and all of the great things that I've done, they're at awe. I've gotten a lot of support. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback because now they see the complete human part of me, not just this superwoman that's able to have this business or run this nonprofit. They see somebody who's beat the adversities that were stood up against them and able to really thrive.
Well, I've only known you for about an hour, but you are a superwoman to me. I'm just going to say
Thank
that.
you.
Um,
Thank you.
John, you want to jump in?
Yeah, definitely, David. I think for me, the biggest takeaway and what I've gained from this entire experience is just the confidence to speak truth to power, right? I think there's obviously ways to go about that, but there's ultimately, this is a subject matter that's dear to my heart because I've lived it, much like Angelique alluded to. And, it's not to say that there aren't good pieces of the puzzle. It's just saying that we could improve and do better. And, for me, this is about, empowering people. There's no question that, I think the film itself, people receive it differently and view it differently, right? But when, unfortunately, when you speak uncomfortable truths, it makes people uncomfortable. And so for me, this is about, ultimately creating conversations in the big scheme of things that empower people to improve the quality of their life. And so that's what the film, I think, has empowered me to be able to do and do so confidently with the help of Represent Justice. I can't, give them enough credit for the ambassador program and what it's taught me and the community it's connected me to for the rest of my life. So I'm forever thankful for that as well.
And Noble, take us home.
For me, it's a huge responsibility, what I do today, and also is also excitement of like showing people that the system is not rehabilitating people, is people with lived experience, because we are the ones that's on the ground in the communities, working with the young people that's coming home, because we're the experts, right? If you need to go to the doctor, you want to get the best doctor possible. But when it comes to repairing harm, building up our community, we're the experts in that. They're like, they overlook that and oversee it. And so I really love like just having an opportunity to really tell my story and show what true accountability look like. Also gives hope to other people to like really step up and begin their healing journey. Because it's like my son's in the story. I get the opportunity to really apologize to him because yes, many crimes happen to me, but I'm also caused a lot of crime to other people. So I'm also responsible for other people putting masks on as well. So it's like a two-part, like, yes, I got my mask. How do I take it off? But how do we help other people take their masks off? And to be able to really help my son go through that journey so he can start his own healing journey. I was responsible in a large way in his mask that he had on when I came home. But it gives hope because sometimes I go to speaking engagements. I'm like, yeah, I um I taught 7 semesters at Columbia University, teaching transforming justice, abolition, and restorative justice. I also did some courses that I spoke at and taught at Harvard, and then also did some speaking engagements at MIT, and everyone's blown away. And I was like, and I'm also forming cosplay. I served over 4 years as a young person. I did 10 years as an adult for the crime that I'm responsible for. And you should see the look on their face. So it's really to show like support one another. You never know what a person's going through. But I don't mean because this person went through something, they still can't be great. So that's really the message of like, no matter what you've been through, it's not the end. It's just the beginning to reset and do it again tomorrow. So that's why I'm gonna continue doing this work. It's a passion and a responsibility.
Well, thank you, guys. I've had the opportunity now to talk with 9 of you. We've done 3 separate shows on that. Plus, I did a standalone with Daniel. Plus, I got to meet him in person, which was really a remarkable experience. I tip my cap to all you guys. You guys are so bright and articulate, and it's really important, and I stress this all the time on this show, to humanize people that have been in prison because you guys get othered, and it's easy to kind of write people off who make mistakes. And we all make mistakes. We've all broken laws. Some of us have been more fortunate than others in terms of avoiding getting into trouble. But that doesn't mean that any of us are saints. We all have our moments. And the more that you guys can share your experience, the more that you can help people understand where you're coming from. And then, as Angelique was talking about, the more you can help people open their eyes to, oh, okay, maybe I don't really want to go to prison. Which, when I was growing up, that was definitely not a place I was gonna want to go to, right? But yeah, I mean, you talk to kids today, they're like, "Oh yeah, I got to wear this badge of honor," and you're like, "No, you really don't. There's so much more you can do." But they're not going to listen to me as much as they're going to listen to you guys because you've lived this and I just talk about this. So, thank you guys for sharing your experiences and for just being great ambassadors for this amazing program. I can't tell you how impressed I am with Represent Justice. So with
For
that,
having us.
I
Thanks
will
for having
I will say goodbye. This has been Everyday Injustice. I'm your host, David Greenwald, and join us again next week for more tales from the injustice system.